Hello everyone. So today I will be presenting a talk on build your first cyber forensic application using Python. So in today's talk we will discuss in brief introduction to digital crimes, digital forensics, the process of investigation and the collection of evidence. Then setting up Python for forensic application development, built-in functions, modules for forensic tasks, then forensic indexing and searching, then about hash functions for forensics, forensic evidence extraction, then metadata forensics, then using natural language tools for forensics, and finally, I will summarize my talk in 1 or 2 minutes. And if there are any questions, we can take them. Let us first look at the cybercrime statistics. The Internet Crime Report for 2019 released by US's Internet Crime Report Complaint Center has revealed the top 4 countries that are victims of internet crimes. So you can see some numbers here. So in USA, more than 4,60,000 crimes have been reported. In UK, more than 90,000. In Canada, more than 33,000, and in India, more than 27,000. But of course, these are only the reported numbers, and during pandemic, these numbers have been much higher. And according to RSA report of 2015, mobile transactions are rapidly growing, and cyber criminals are migrating to less protected soft channels. So mobile device is considered as less protected soft channels. That is because many people are not aware of security settings in their phones, and many times we also see that the softwares used in these mobile phones are also not secure. Then according to report by Norton, an estimated 113 million Indians lost about say around $200 on average to cybercrime. Then it is also published in the newspaper that over 55% of the millennials in India are hit by the cybercrime. So this is the youngest population where the people are born after 1995. Then the recent study by Checkpoint Research has recorded over 150,000 cyber attacks every week during the COVID-19 pandemic. So there has been an increase of 30% in the cyber attacks compared to the previous weeks. Let us first look at the definition of forensic science. So forensic science is the use of scientific methods or expertise to investigate the crimes or examine evidence that might be presented in the court of law. So this is very important. The evidence must be presented in the court of law. Then cyber forensics is investigation of various crimes happening in the cyberspace. Okay. So examples of cyber attacks include phishing, ransomware, fake news, then fake medicine, extortion, and insider frauds. So insider frauds are also very important when we consider the frauds or even attacks. Insider frauds or attacks are due to the reason of say unhappy employees. They may be unhappy due to various reasons, maybe a promotion, maybe reduced salary or some other things. Then according to DFRWS, there is digital forensics research workshop. So digital forensics can be defined as the use of scientifically derived and proven method toward the preservation, collection, validation, identification, analysis, interpretation, documentation, and presentation of digital evidence derived from the digital sources for the purpose of facilitating or furthering the reconstruction of events found to be criminal, or helping to anticipate unauthorized actions shown to be disruptive to the planned operations. Now, if you look at the definition here, it has got two parts. The first part explains the various steps involved in performing digital forensics investigation, and second part emphasizes on the reconstruction of events so as to find out the evidence and presenting the same in the court of law. Now let us look at these steps in detail. So first step is identification in digital forensic investigation process. So what happens in identification is the investigation officer will visit the crime location, and the officer will try to identify the different sources of evidence. So evidence may be present in computer, or it may be present in laptop, or in mobile devices, in any digital gadgets. It may be toy pen drive and so on. So after identifying the different objects, so he or she will take, that is the investigation officer will take the photograph of the entire crime scene, and also they will also note down which objects have to be collected. So in the collection phase, they will simply collect the different objects identified. So the care has to be taken uh, that they uh, and ensure that they should have collected the evidences. Okay, so there's a possibility that there are there will be pen drives which are in the shape of toys, so they should not be missed. And whenever they are collecting the evidence, they also need to collect the evidence from the computer. So in that case, they need to take a snapshot of the entire system. So when I say snapshot, they need to create the image of the hard disk. So they need to ensure that the evidence is not lost. So in that case, if the system is on, then they need to perform live forensics. If it is not possible, then they can directly pull the plug and take the system to the lab and collect the data. So these cares have to be taken. If they change the state of the system, then there's a possibility of losing the information or evidence. The next is validation. So in validation, what happens is generally the investigation will be performed on the copy of the data. So when they perform copy of the data, they need to ensure that the investigation has been performed on the copy of the data, not on the original data. That is because there is a possibility that the evidence may get altered. So once the examination is performed, once they check the once they find out the evidence on the copy of the data, or once the examination is complete, they need to ensure that the original data and the copy are same. So that can be done by using validation. So here they can use hashing algorithms. The next is examination. So in examination, actually they find out the evidence, pieces of evidence, and try to establish the correlation between different pieces of evidence. Then next step is the preservation. So evidence needs to be preserved, and the objects collected also needs to be preserved. So it can be physical, it can be virtual. So if there's a physical hard disk, then it needs to be kept in a locker at appropriate temperature, right? Then similarly, if it is a soft copy, then also it needs to be stored in a proper location. So generally, when they collect the different pieces of evidence, they will put them in the bags like anti-static bags or Faraday bags, then so that the evidence is preserved. Then final step is presentation. So in presentation, what happens is it's the final step, and the investigation officer will present the evidence in the court of law. So if all the previous steps have been performed as per the rules and procedures of law enforcement agencies, then it will be accepted in the court of law. Otherwise, it may be rejected by the court. Then there is something called as Daubert standard, and it is closely related to open source softwares and Python. So in United States federal law, Daubert standard is the rule of evidence regarding the admissibility of expert witness testimony. So a party may raise a Daubert motion, a special motion in limine raised before or during trial, to exclude the presentation of unqualified evidence to the jury. So there are some factors which needs to be considered. So these illustrative factors are part of scientific methodology as a process of formulating hypothesis and then conducting the experiments to prove or falsify the hypothesis. So these illustrative factors are: has the technique been tested in actual field conditions? Has the technique been subject to peer review and publication? What is the known or potential rate of error? Do standards exist for control of techniques operation? Has the technique been generally accepted within the relevant scientific community? So these are the general questions. Then how it is related to Python. So in 2003, Brian Carrier published a paper that examined the rules of evidence standards, including Daubert, and compared and contrasted the open source and closed source forensic tools. So one of his key finding was that using the guidelines of Daubert tests, it has been shown that the open source tools may more clearly and comprehensively meet the guideline requirements that would close the closed source tools. Okay, so the results are not automatic, but just because the source is open, rather specific steps must be followed regarding the design and development and validation. So if we have to ask the question specific to Python, then can the programmer algorithm be explained? So this explanation should be explained in words, not only in terms of code, because we need to explain it to the people who are from non-computing background. So has the enough information been provided such that thorough tests can be developed to test the program? Then have error rates been calculated and validated independently? Then has the program been studied and peer reviewed? Has the program been generally accepted by the community? So these are the steps usually happen with any open source tools compared to closed source tools. So since Python is open source, it obviously complies to Daubert standard, and we know that there's a huge community and which does which do perform all the above steps. Then whenever you are setting up a Python for forensic application development, there are various factors you need to consider. First one is your background and organization support. So are you familiar with the open source tools and its ecosystem, whether your organization uses the open source tools and whether it supports the development and contribution to open source software? The next one is choosing third-party libraries. We know that there are many third-party libraries with respect to Python or any open source development, but how stable they are, and are you comfortable in exploring these third-party libraries and using them? The next is IDEs and their features. So whenever we say IDEs, they are integrated development environments. So they will be having several sophisticated features. So examples are like Visual Studio Code or Notepad++. Any open source software or free software can be considered here. Then installation. So when we come to installation, again we have got several options. Either you can install them on your machine as a dual boot operating system or a standalone operating system. You can also go for virtual machine, or you can go for cloud installation. Then next is the right version of Python. So you need to use right version of Python, because sometimes you may also be using third-party libraries, and it is not guaranteed that the third-party library may not be compatible with the specific version of Python. So you need to use the right version of Python for a specific third-party library. Then graphical versus shell. So in most of the times, the beginners may prefer to use the graphical user interface because it is very easy to use, and geeks may go for shell because it is highly customizable and they may get results in quick time or in lesser time. Now let us look at some built-in functions and modules. So on this slide, you can see some of the built-in functions have been listed, and you can use these functions for carrying out your basic forensic task. So some examples are like hash function. So we'll see how hash function is used in one of the upcoming slides. Now you can see here on this slide, we have got a basic code which just simply generates the range of IP addresses. So here the range function has been used, and we are using a for loop to generate the IP addresses and printing those IP addresses. Then you can list the files and folders in the present working directory by using the OS module, and OS module has a function called as getCwd. So that is nothing but to get the current working directory. Then from current working directory, use a function for function of list dir and pass the pwd as the parameter, and it will print all the files and directories in the present directory. The next is forensic indexing and searching. So you can use simple file search and index function. Of course, it may not be as simple as it looks here. So it's just a small application which helps us to understand the concept of how forensic and indexing works. So you can define a set called as search words, then define the file words in a file called as keywords.txt, then check for search words in the keywords.txt file. So if it is present, then you can say that the word is found, otherwise you can say that not found. So basically here we are trying to find out the piece of evidence in the large text. So this may be a very small example. So next example is we are using a specific library called as the Whoosh. So Whoosh was created and is maintained by Matt, and it is originally created for the use of online help system. So it's a again pure Python library. It supports filtered indexing and search, and fast indexing and retrieval is supported. It also supports pluggable scoring algorithms. It supports powerful query language. So in simple terms, you can build your own search engine. So you can see here there's a Python code. So we are importing create in module, and then we are defining a schema with title, path, and content. Then we are writing the data to the paths. So basically here we are building the index with the content. Then we are using the QParser module from query parser, and we are going to search for a content in the indexed document. So basically we have built a very shorter version of Google, you can say. So it's a customized search engine, but for your own data. So hash functions, as I was discussing, it can be used for the validation of the data. So you can see here that we have imported a library called as hashlib. Then we have defined a message. So we have defined a message, and we are performing SHA-256 hash on the message. So message m is defined in two parts. You can define it in multi-part. That's absolutely fine. Then compute the digest on message m. Then define another message called as x. Then again define some content there. So I have defined the same content, but in x it is a single part message. Then compare the digest of message m with the digest of message x. Now you can see here that on the right hand side the result says that it is true. So that means that uh, it is validated and content is not altered. Now in the second example, in the message x, I have added one extra space, and after adding the extra space, I have calculated the or computed the message digest. Now this time it says false. That's because of addition of one extra space. So if the message is altered, and if you compute the SHA-256 digest, it says that both are different. So this is a simple way to ensure that your evidence has not been altered. Then next is forensic evidence extraction. So here you can check for a library called as Pillow. So Pillow is Python imaging library which adds image processing capabilities to the Python interpreter. It supports various file formats. Now there are some code snippets here, so which explains how you can extract the different file properties from images. So when you go for tags, it's basically extracts the file name, file size, when it was created, and so on. There's also one more property called as GPS tags, which will help us to extract the information related to the location, such as latitude and longitude. So with that we can try to predict the location from which the photo has been taken. Then there is a library called as PyScreenshot, which allows us to take screenshots, so without installing third-party libraries. So if you have installed Pillow, then you get a wrapper over it here. So this PyScreenshot library supports various wrappers. Now, on this screen, you can see that you can take a screenshot of entire screen with this piece of code. So import PyScreenshot module, then use the grab method and use this save method and specify the file name. So with this piece of code, you can take the screenshot of entire screen. Now, if you want to if you want to take the screenshot of the part of screen, then in the grab method, you need to specify the location, that is x1, y1 and x2, y2. So you are specifying the area of which you have to take the screenshot. Now these are the some performance issues, but in forensics, performance is not the issue. Getting the evidence is very important. But if you are still interested, then you can perform some small tweaks, such as disable child processes, and you can use the appropriate background such as Scrot or such as MSS, and you can improve the performance if you are interested, but it is really not required. Then metadata forensics. With metadata forensics, you can extract the information from various types of files. So there's a library called as Mutagen, from which you can extract the information from the audio file. So you can see here, it's a very simple, in just 3 lines, you can extract the properties of the audio file. So it's a ogg verbis file. You can also get the information from FLAC file or even MP3 file. So you will get the information such as length and the bitrate. The next is PyPDF2 module. It's again a pure Python library. And if you want to deal with the PDF files, then you can go for PyPDF2. You can split the documents page by page here, merge the documents page by page. You can crop the pages. Then you can merge different pages into a single page. Then next one is the PE file. So in PE file, you can actually go for PE file stands for portable executable file. It's a Windows operating system related file, but you can install this module on any platform and perform some analysis. So some of the things which you can do on PE file are inspecting headers, analyzing sections data, retrieving embedded data, then reading strings from resources, then overwriting fields, then warning for suspicious and malformed values. So these are some of the tasks which you can do with the PE file module. And next is using natural language tools. So we know that we need to deal with large amount of data. So in that case, it is not possible to deal with the uh, large amount of data manually. So you can go for natural language processing tools here. So you can go for NLTK, Spacey or Textacy. So these are the popular NLP packages in Python. So they also support other languages such as other than English, but the choice is limited. If you are really interested and if you want to deal with more human languages, then you can go for Stanza and Polyglot. Stanza is by Stanford NLP, and Polyglot is a package which supports actually huge number of uh, features and huge number of human languages. So there are 2 more libraries such as INLTK and Indic NLP. They are specifically for Indian languages. So in summary, it is very important to follow the standard procedure laid by the law enforcement agencies during investigation process. There are many open source as well as commercial tools for digital forensics. Then learning to develop your own tool is always advantageous because you can always save on you can always save them money, and of course it will also enhance your skills. So many tools written in Python are pure Python implementations, and most importantly, Python and open source tools comply with the Daubert standard. Any questions I can take up? Thanks for listening.